I know this may sound hard to believe, and you might feel skeptical hearing it, but stay with me as I break this down clearly. Many women assume that when collagen begins repairing again after 50, the change should be obvious and visible right away, yet biology works very differently at this stage of life. Before anything improves in the mirror, the body reveals recovery through a subtle nighttime shift that most women never realize matters. For many women over 50, this misunderstanding creates quiet frustration because they are doing many things right, yet assuming their body has lost the ability to repair simply because the changes are not dramatic. In reality, collagen recovery after menopause follows a different biological order, one that prioritizes internal stability long before visible improvement. I'm Dr. Eliza Hart, a board-certified obstetrician and gynecologist with over 15 years of experience in women's health and hormonal wellness. And what I want to share today is not a trend or a promise, but a clearer way to understand how the aging body actually signals repair. If you find this kind of explanation helpful, consider subscribing to the channel and take a moment to comment the name of the country you're watching from so I know this message is reaching women around the world. And please stay until the very end, because I have one small but important insight about this nighttime signal that most women never hear, and it changes how you interpret everything we're about to discuss as we move into the science behind collagen repair at night. 1. Why collagen repair happens at night after 50. As we move into the core of this discussion, it becomes important to understand why the body chooses nighttime, rather than the busy hours of the day, as the primary window for collagen repair, especially after the age of 50, when physiology begins operating under a different set of priorities. During the day, your body is focused on survival tasks, such as movement, digestion, blood sugar regulation, and constant neurological alertness, all of which demand energy and hormonal activity that directly compete with deeper tissue repair. At night, however, the internal environment gradually shifts in a way that finally allows restoration to take precedence. From a biological perspective, nighttime is when cortisol levels naturally decline, removing one of the strongest biochemical signals that suppresses collagen synthesis and cellular renewal. At the same time, growth hormone release increases, not to build dramatic new tissue overnight, but to guide fibroblasts into a quieter, more efficient mode of repair where existing collagen fibers are reinforced, microdamage is addressed, and excessive enzymatic breakdown is slowed. After menopause, this repair window becomes narrower and more sensitive to disruption, but it does not disappear, which is a critical distinction many women are never taught to recognize. Rather than producing large amounts of new collagen all at once, the aging body works more conservatively, prioritizing stability before regeneration, and focusing first on preserving structural integrity rather than visible fullness. This is why nighttime collagen activity is so often misunderstood, because it does not announce itself through immediate firmness or smoother texture, but through internal signals that indicate the skin environment is becoming calmer, more regulated, and less inflammatory at a cellular level. In clinical observation, this pattern appears consistently in women whose repair mechanisms are still responsive, even when outward signs lag behind expectations. What matters most here is not how fast collagen returns, but whether the conditions required for repair are present consistently enough for the process to continue without interruption. When nighttime hormones are allowed to follow their natural rhythm, fibroblasts respond not with urgency, but with precision, reinforcing collagen structure in a way that supports long-term resilience rather than short-lived cosmetic change. This explains why chasing aggressive daytime interventions often leads to disappointment, while understanding the role of nighttime repair offers a more realistic framework for healing after 50. As we continue, the next step is learning how this internal repair activity quietly reveals itself, because the body does leave clues even when it avoids drawing attention to them. 2. The nighttime change most senior women miss. What often confuses women after 50 is not the absence of effort, but the absence of obvious confirmation, because the earliest signs of collagen repair do not look like improvement in the way most people expect. Instead of tighter skin or softened lines, the first change tends to appear as a subtle shift in how the skin feels upon waking a difference that is easy to dismiss unless you understand what is happening beneath the surface and how the aging body communicates recovery differently. When collagen repair restarts, one of the earliest biological effects is a reduction in nighttime inflammation, which allows the skin's barrier to stabilize rather than remain in a constant state of low-grade stress. This shift does not produce dramatic visual results, but it changes the internal environment of the skin in a meaningful way, improving lipid balance, reducing excessive water loss and calming nerve endings that previously signaled tightness or irritation. In clinical practice, many women tell me that while their wrinkles look unchanged, they wake up feeling less tight, less irritated, and more comfortable in their skin, often noticing this shift several mornings in a row, which frequently marks the first return of consistent nighttime repair activity. From a biological standpoint, this matters far more than most people realize, because collagen fibers cannot be rebuilt effectively in an environment that remains inflamed, overstimulated, or hormonally unstable. Repair begins only after the skin has shifted out of defense mode and into a state that supports regeneration, even if that regeneration is still occurring at a microscopic level. The reason this nighttime change is so often overlooked is that it contradicts the cultural expectation of immediate transformation, especially in a world conditioned to look for visible proof. After menopause, however, the body prioritizes regulation before reconstruction, meaning collagen repair starts by restoring balance within the skin's signaling systems rather than altering appearance. This makes the process feel subtle, even underwhelming unless you know what signal to watch for. What this early nighttime shift truly indicates is not a cosmetic result, but a biological readiness, showing that the conditions necessary for collagen repair are present again. And while this signal may seem modest, it represents the difference between a system that is still capable of healing and one that remains locked in chronic stress. Understanding this distinction naturally prepares us to explore why visible changes take longer to appear and why collagen recovery after 50 follows a different, more deliberate timeline. 3. Why this appears before wrinkles improve. It can feel discouraging when you are paying attention, making thoughtful changes, and still not seeing wrinkles soften or texture improve. But this timing gap is not a failure of collagen repair. It is a reflection of how the body restores itself after 50. Collagen recovery does not begin with surface-level changes because the skin cannot rebuild structure until the underlying biological environment becomes stable enough to support that work. What happens first is far less visible, yet far more important for long-term repair. From a physiological standpoint, collagen recovery follows a clear internal sequence that the body rarely skips, especially in later life. Inflammation must calm before repair can begin because fibroblasts cannot function properly in a stressed or reactive environment. Once inflammation is reduced, the skin barrier starts to stabilize, limiting unnecessary water loss and reducing constant nerve stimulation. Only after these foundational systems are regulated does the body begin repairing microdamage within the dermis, gradually preparing collagen fibers for meaningful rebuilding. Visible improvements come last, not first, which is why they often lag behind the actual biological progress taking place. Many women misinterpret this delay as proof that nothing is happening, particularly when they are conditioned to expect fast cosmetic-style feedback. In clinical observation, however, the women who eventually see improvement are often the ones who first noticed quieter changes, such as reduced morning tightness or less reactive skin weeks before any visual shift occurred. These early signals indicate that the repair sequence has begun, even though it has not yet reached the stage of outward transformation. If this explanation resonates with your own experience, take a moment to let me know by commenting 1. if you have noticed subtle changes before visible ones, or 0 if you feel stuck waiting for results that have not appeared yet. Your response helps me understand where you are in this process and allows this conversation to support more women navigating the same uncertainty. What matters most is recognizing that collagen repair is not delayed without reason, but intentionally paced to protect the integrity of aging skin. When the body senses stability, it invests in rebuilding. When it senses stress, it prioritizes defense. Understanding this order reframes patience not as passive waiting, but as alignment with the way healing actually unfolds after 50. And once this internal sequence is clear, it becomes easier to interpret what your skin is truly telling you, rather than judging progress solely by what you see in the mirror. 4. Why many women misjudge collagen recovery. One of the most common reasons collagen recovery feels confusing after 50 is that many women are unknowingly using the wrong measurement to judge progress, relying almost entirely on what they see in the mirror, rather than what the body is doing beneath the surface. Visual changes are slow by design at this stage of life, not because repair has failed, but because the body is cautious about how and when it invests resources into rebuilding tissue that has already been stressed for years. Collagen recovery begins at a cellular level long before it becomes a cosmetic outcome. Fibroblasts respond first by adjusting their internal signaling, repairing microscopic damage, and reducing unnecessary breakdown, all of which happen quietly and without producing immediate changes in texture or firmness. These processes are not meant to be seen. They are meant to create stability. When women look for rapid, visible confirmation, they often conclude that nothing is happening even while the biological groundwork for repair is actively being laid. Another reason this recovery is frequently misjudged is that aging skin communicates progress differently than younger skin. In earlier decades, repair signals are strong, fast, and often noticeable within days. After menopause, however, the same systems operate with less hormonal amplification, meaning progress occurs in smaller increments that accumulate gradually rather than dramatically. Without understanding this shift, it becomes easy to confuse slower signaling with absence of repair. In clinical settings, many women who eventually experience meaningful improvement initially report a period of uncertainty where their skin does not look better, but feels less reactive, less inflamed, or more comfortable overall. These sensations are often dismissed as insignificant, yet they reflect a nervous system and skin barrier that are no longer operating in constant defense mode. Collagen cannot be rebuilt effectively in a body that remains chronically alert, inflamed, or hormonally unstable, which is why these early changes matter more than they appear. The mirror, while useful, offers only a snapshot of the surface, not a full picture of the repair process. Collagen recovery is cumulative, requiring consistency and internal regulation before it translates into visible improvement. When progress is evaluated too narrowly or too early, many women stop trusting their body at the exact moment it begins doing what it is biologically capable of doing again. Recognizing this misalignment between expectation and physiology allows collagen recovery to be understood as a process rather than a performance. When progress is measured by internal signals instead of immediate visual payoff, patience becomes a tool rather than a test, setting the stage for why nighttime differences in skin behavior reveal far more than the mirror ever could. 5. Aging night versus recovering night. The contrast between an aging night and a recovering night is subtle, yet biologically meaningful, because the body reveals its priorities most clearly when external demands finally quiet down. At night, the skin is no longer responding to movement, light, or constant environmental stressors, which means its behavior during these hours reflects whether repair systems are struggling or beginning to regain control. This difference is not about comfort alone. It is about whether the skin remains in defense mode or transitions into restoration. An aging night is characterized by physiological restlessness. The skin tends to feel warmer or drier, not necessarily because moisture is lacking, but because inflammatory signaling remains elevated and the barrier never fully stabilizes. Sleep may feel shallow or interrupted, and the body continues releasing stress hormones that interfere with collagen maintenance. Under these conditions, fibroblasts focus on survival rather than repair, prioritizing damage, limitation over rebuilding. Collagen breakdown continues quietly, even though no obvious changes appear overnight. A recovering night, by contrast, reflects a shift toward regulation. Skin temperature becomes more balanced, barrier function improves, and nerve signaling calms as inflammation subsides. Sleep often deepens not because the body is suddenly healthier, but because the nervous system no longer perceives constant threat. In this environment, fibroblasts are free to redirect energy toward reinforcing collagen structure, repairing microdamage, and slowing excessive enzymatic degradation. The work remains invisible, but it is purposeful and cumulative. What makes this distinction difficult to recognize is that neither state produces dramatic morning results. A recovering night does not guarantee smoother skin or immediate firmness. It simply indicates that the internal conditions required for collagen repair are present. Many women overlook this difference because they expect progress to announce itself visually, when in reality it announces itself through stability, comfort, and consistency first. From a clinical perspective, this contrast explains why two women of the same age can experience entirely different trajectories. One remains stuck in an aging cycle because nighttime stress never fully resolves, while the other gradually improves because her body consistently enters a state that supports repair. The difference is not effort or discipline, it is biological readiness. Understanding the distinction between an aging night and a recovering night reframes nighttime as a diagnostic window rather than a passive period. When the body repeatedly experiences restorative nights, collagen repair gains momentum over time. And once this pattern is established, the quieter signals of recovery become easier to recognize, preparing us to explore why these nighttime shifts carry even greater significance after menopause. 6. Why this nighttime signal matters more after menopause. After menopause, the same nighttime signals that once felt subtle become far more meaningful because the hormonal environment supporting collagen repair has fundamentally changed. Estrogen, which previously amplified repair signals and accelerated tissue renewal, no longer provides the same level of support, forcing the body to rely more heavily on internal balance and systemic calm to maintain collagen integrity. As a result, the presence or absence of nighttime stability becomes one of the clearest indicators of whether repair is still possible. When estrogen levels decline, collagen signaling does not stop, but it becomes more sensitive to disruption. Elevated nighttime stress, persistent inflammation or nervous system overactivation can easily override the weaker repair signals that remain. This is why after menopause, collagen repair is less about adding stimulation and more about removing interference. The body will not invest in rebuilding when it senses instability, regardless of how many external interventions are introduced. A stable nighttime signal suggests that the nervous system is entering a parasympathetic state, allowing inflammation to settle and growth-related pathways to function without competition. This matters because fibroblasts require a calm biochemical environment to shift from maintenance mode into repair mode. When nighttime stress hormones remain elevated, fibroblasts are effectively instructed to preserve resources rather than rebuild structure, slowing collagen recovery even further. In clinical observation, women who maintain consistent nighttime stability tend to experience a slower, steadier form of improvement that is easy to underestimate. Their progress does not arrive in bursts, but through gradual reinforcement of collagen fibers and improved tissue resilience over time. Conversely, women whose nights remain fragmented often struggle to see progress, despite considerable effort, because the repair window never fully opens. What makes this stage particularly challenging is that the margin for error is smaller. Small disruptions that once had little impact can now delay repair significantly. However, the same sensitivity also means that when nighttime conditions improve, the body responds efficiently, even without dramatic hormonal support. Collagen repair does not require perfection. It requires consistency and a sense of safety. This is why the nighttime signal matters more after menopause than at any other stage of life. It reflects whether the body still recognizes the night as a time for restoration rather than vigilance. When that recognition is present, collagen repair is not only possible but sustainable. And understanding this distinction helps shift focus away from forcing results and towards supporting the conditions that allow repair to unfold, naturally setting the stage for what this nighttime change truly tells you about your body's capacity to heal. 7. What this nighttime change really tells you. By the time this nighttime change becomes noticeable even in its quietest form, it is already telling a much deeper story than most women realize, because the body does not offer reassurance lightly after 50. When the skin begins to feel calmer, more regulated, or less reactive overnight, it is not offering a cosmetic signal, but revealing that internal systems have shifted out of chronic defense and into a state where repair is once again considered safe. In clinical settings, women often describe this as waking up without the familiar sense of tightness or irritation, even though nothing looks different yet. This distinction matters because the body will not initiate collagen repair unless it believes stability can be maintained. What this signal truly reflects is not how much collagen has been rebuilt yet, but whether the conditions required for repair are present and repeating consistently. Collagen recovery depends on a coordinated conversation between the nervous system inflammatory pathways and fibroblast activity, and nighttime is when that conversation is least interrupted. When the body repeatedly enters a restorative state during sleep, it confirms that stress signaling is no longer dominating the system, allowing repair processes to proceed without being overridden. Many women assume that if collagen repair were happening, it would feel dramatic or unmistakable. Yet after menopause, the body communicates differently. Repair no longer arrives with urgency. It arrives with restraint. The body prioritizes maintaining balance before attempting visible improvement because structural rebuilding without stability would only lead to further breakdown. This is why the earliest confirmation of progress is often a sense of ease rather than change, a signal that the system is no longer fighting itself. From a clinical perspective, this is one of the most reliable indicators that collagen repair is active again at a foundational level. When this nighttime signal appears, it suggests that fibroblasts are no longer being suppressed by stress hormones or inflammatory overload, and that collagen maintenance has shifted from preservation toward gradual reinforcement. While the process remains slow, it is no longer stalled. Most importantly, this signal tells you that your body has not given up on repair, even if it has become more selective about when and how that repair occurs. After 50, healing is not loud or immediate. It is deliberate and conditional. Recognizing this allows you to interpret your body's behavior with clarity rather than doubt, understanding that quiet progress is still progress, and that collagen recovery often begins long before it chooses to reveal itself in the mirror. Collagen recovery after 50 does not announce itself through dramatic changes, but through quieter signals that reflect stability returning to the body at night. When skin feels calmer, less reactive, and more regulated, it often means the internal conditions required for repair are present again, even if visible changes take time to follow. The most helpful advice at this stage is not to chase instant results, but to pay attention to consistency, sleep quality, and how your body behaves when it is finally at rest, because healing after menopause depends more on balance than force. If this kind of clear, science-based explanation is helpful to you and you would like to support the channel's growth, you can choose to donate in a small way, which genuinely helps me continue creating thoughtful, ad-free content for women around the world. And before you go, please like this video, share it with someone who may need reassurance, subscribe to the channel, and thank you sincerely for spending this time with me today.